Welcome to another Signal Conversation. This month we've got a really interesting conversation with Ilya Pozin, the founder and CEO of Telly. This is a device that many of us here have been paying attention to and just got a lot of attention at CES recently. It's a new kind of television, and Ilya has some experience in redefining television as a co-founder of Pluto Television, Pluto TV, which of course was a successful streaming service. He's moved on from that, and he's now reinventing from the ground up, starting with the hardware and of course the software. We're going to talk all about it. Welcome to Signal, Ilya.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So tell us first, what is Telly?
Yeah, so Telly is a dual screen television. It's a 55-inch TV up top and a second screen on the bottom with a premium soundbar and a bunch of extra features. And it's actually the smartest TV on the market by far. If we were to sell the device, it would cost over $1,000. But we're disrupting it, similar to Pluto TV. We're disrupting it also not only by building the smartest TV in the market, but we're disrupting the price point where the television is actually completely free to the consumer.
That's a big deal. These big screen televisions with all of the features and just the sound bars are several $100s. So tell me, how do you make that business model work?
Yeah, so actually, if you go back to my last company, Pluto TV, that you mentioned, we entered the market offering a free streaming service, right, where everyone thought we were crazy. We had 93 no's from every investor before we had a yes. All the media companies and content owners thought we were completely nuts. And because, it seemed like the whole world was going subscription on demand. And here's this little company that kind of felt like it was going backwards 30 years, right, to ad-supported linear television. But the fact of the matter, it worked, right? And we put it out there, and the data was what it actually told. The funny thing about me is I don't actually watch a lot of TV, and I found myself to be in this television kind of media landscape. But I think the advantage that gives me is I don't have any personal subjectivity. Everything I do is very objective. So looking at data is key. And at Pluto, we proved that you could build a very sustainable business on a single revenue stream where we're not double dipping on revenue, right? Where we're offering it completely free and it's supported by advertising. And Telly, of course, is doing the exact same thing, right? Right now, when a TV maker, let's say like a Samsung, Vizio, Roku, anyone, when they sell a TV, because TVs have hit this commodity state, there's very little margin in the hardware. The only thing you can do when every television is identical in features is drop your price, right? Consumers walk into Costco, wherever, they see what's on sale, there's very little brand loyalty, and that's what they buy. And when that happens, the company does a couple of things. One is innovation kind of halts because there's no margin to innovate, right? And frankly, right now, if you look at your wall, the TV there could be 3 months old, 3 years old, 7 years old. You don't know, right? They all look almost identical, right? But the other thing that happens is they try to find other revenue streams, right? And for many TV makers, or in fact, all of them, it's selling data and advertising, right? So once again, they're double dipping. They're charging for the TV, and then they're selling your data, and they're monetizing your eyeballs with advertising. So at Telly, we said, you know what? Let's do the same thing as with Pluto. Let's get rid of the one revenue stream. You don't make any money on hardware anyway. Why sell it? And let's go all in on the data advertising revenue side of the business and make that offer very compelling and transparent to the consumer, right? And tell them, look, you're opting into this. You're getting data and ads. Everyone else already does this. We're just giving you a TV that's worth over $1,000 completely free. So there's a very clear value exchange.
And one of the, there are many features to Telly that are unique, but probably the most notable is the second screen, where you've got a sort of permanent fixed place to communicate with the consumer in commercial ways. I mean, you do other things with it, of course, as well, but that is the place where you have sort of unique addressable space for advertising. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What's the unit? How does it work?
Yeah, good question. So the best analogy I kind of use to explain it is it's almost the second screen is the same width as the top, but the height is much smaller, right? So it's almost like imagine like a tablet attached to your TV,
Mm-hmm.
right? And these days, most people are already on their phones or some other device while they're watching television. So we said, let's just attach that screen to the television and use that as a way to enhance the content viewing experience. Kind of like a car. The top is your windshield. It should always stay clean, so you can pay attention to the content. The bottom is your dashboard, right? That's where your speedometer, your radio, your nav is on your car. For us, that's where we show you sports scores and weather and news, and lots of other types of widgets and ways to improve what you're watching. So imagine you're browsing Netflix, you're trying to figure out what to watch, and maybe Rotten Tomatoes reviews show up on the bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or imagine you put on your favorite sports game, and boom, we automatically pull up your fantasy sports or maybe some sports betting or something on the bottom to once again enhance that content viewing experience. But from a business perspective, there's also a space for an ad, right? And that's what makes our entire business model very disruptive, but also sustainable. And why it works is because the advertising is there the whole time somebody's watching TV, right? So when you're looking at other incumbents like the Samsungs and Vizios of the world, when you're looking at a single screen environment, they can only advertise when you're inside their operating system, like when you're on their homepage. But for us, we run ads no matter what you're watching. And in fact, a big use case for us is people turning off the top screen and leaving the bottom on, right? Where they're still engaging with the television, but not watching TV, but maybe they're using their voice assistant, maybe they're on a Zoom call, maybe they're playing games, maybe they're just looking at some, weather news info, but the ad is still there and it's persistent. And we have a lot more hours and opportunities to engage with that consumer, thus driving a much higher revenue for the business.
What I find fascinating about that is how you basically got out of the game that everyone else is boxed into, which is everyone is trying to get a piece of that main screen pie, whether it's the TV makers like Samsung and others, it's the streamers, it's the networks, it's the affiliate. Everyone is sort of, splitting an increasingly smaller amount of attention in the main screen. You live outside of that world. And I imagine that so does all the data that you are capturing about how people are using the television, how they're consuming shows. As a matter of fact, what I got excited about when I first heard about this was, it seems to me that for the devices you have installed, and we'll get to how many and how you scale in a second, but for those devices, you may have a pretty unique view of television experience across every single possible streaming service, simply because you aren't locked into the ecosystem where people are sort of fighting with each other about who gets what data, which seems to be stopping the ad universe from truly innovating in the streaming space. Is that a fair kind of set of insights?
I think you said it better than I could have. Yeah, the data is really at the heart of Telly, right? And because it's free, there's a very clear value exchange for the consumer, but that also allows us to operate a little bit differently, right? When you're buying a regular television, the TV maker doesn't really know who you are, right? Like when you're going to Best Buy, you're buying a TV, they don't know who you are unless you register and provide some basic information. But for us, that changes from day one. In fact, to get on our wait list, to get a Telly, when you sign up, you're filling out a questionnaire of over 130 questions. So these are demographics, psychographics, and we go in deep because at the end of the day, consumers don't mind advertising as long as it's relevant. And in order to deliver relevant advertising, we have to know who you are, right? So we go in deep into various types of questions across every category, from your income to what car do you drive to, when's your lease up, what restaurants do you eat at, do you order food, do you eat out, eat in, what are your favorite brands, are you renting, are you it does just everything that potentially is a target in advertising, right? We ask those questions up front, and then when you get your Telly, that data is automatically synced to the TV, and then as you mentioned, we have our ACR technology allows us to see what's being watched, right? And every other TV maker does this, but our secret sauce is we're not under any distribution agreements from any streaming service or any provider that typically in those agreements blocks the TV maker from accessing and using that data. So that gives us zero blind spots. So not only do we have rich zero-party profile data about the consumer, right? But we also know everything they're watching that's out on the screen, from shows to streaming to live to cable to broadcast to video games, doesn't matter, right? And then finally, we have a motion sensor on the device that also lets us know when people are in front of it or when the room is empty and how many people are there,
That's
right?
the big elephant in the
And
room when it comes to television.
that, well, it actually is, and when we actually see what advertising people watch as well, right? So if we can see that it doesn't matter if you're using, if you're watching Telly's ads or maybe an ad on, I don't know, an NBC or something, but our data actually shows that for a lot of the commercial breaks, about a third of the room is often empty, right? Empty rooms can't really buy much, right? But a lot of times those advertising dollars are still spent, right? There's a big inefficiency there on television because it's kind of like the last piece to this whole digital landscape that's not fully addressable and fully measurable and fully digital, and you're still using panels to figure out who's doing what. Well, the cool thing about Telly is we are a panel in a way, right? We in fact a much bigger panel than the largest panels out there because every TV has an unbiased distribution footprint, right? Our audience is representative of the U.S. population. We have people everywhere in all pockets of the country. In fact, we actually over-index a little bit on income, but we pretty much mirror the U.S. population. And because of that triangulation of data of who you are, what you're watching, and when you're there, it allows us to run a very sustainable data business on top of the advertising business.
So, a couple of things that I want to follow up there. One has to do with scale. You came out last year and you announced that you were going to offer up to 500,000 televisions for free by the end of last year. And you have plans to scale significantly beyond that. I mean, you have hardware issues.
Yeah.
You've got to build a lot of televisions, or I would say perhaps your OEM partners have to build a lot of televisions. But how is that going? How many are out there? And, how long is your wait list? And when do you expect to hit what you consider critical mass in terms of the number of people using this system?
Yeah, all good questions. So first of all, we're always free. The 500,000 that was mentioned in all the media when we launched in May was it was not just once we distribute that we're done.
Right.
Our business model will never be to sell a television. We haven't publicly announced how many homes we're in exactly, but what we did that's a little bit different that most hardware. Frankly, I don't even know any hardware company that goes through this. Is we launched the company into a beta program, right? Where and that's really never done. It's always done in software, right? We're all familiar with Gmail or any kind of like major software launch always goes into a beta. We actually did that with hardware because we're bringing something new and innovative to the market. We wanted to iterate and make the product better and ready before we go into prime time, right? So what we did is we randomly went through our wait list and invited thousands and thousands of people to be in our beta program. We've shipped devices now to over 43 states, right? We iterated on the product, and the way we kind of treat it is kind of like a Tesla, where the car keeps getting better and better over time, but not because of hardware, but because of software, right? So we overloaded Telly with a bunch of extra hardware and sensors and things like that to, in the future, enable it to become smarter and smarter and smarter, right? And we've shipped thousands of devices. We have now validated and proven our business. That was 2023 was our year of kind of validation, if you will. Everyone's extremely happy. Our investors are happy. Everyone internally at the company is happy. But most importantly, our consumers are happy. We have a 99% satisfaction rate. We have our TV is used for more than double what the primary TV is used typically in a home. So we're almost over 6 hours of usage every single day, which is phenomenal because typically the primary TV gets about 3.3 hours of usage, right? And because everything is great, the engagement's great, return rates are almost non-existent, and then advertisers are happy, the ad recall rates are through the roof, our case studies are through the roof. We're now entering our year of scale, right? And this is where we're going to make sure our entire wait list is satisfied. So we have almost 400,000 people on the wait list right now. That's signed up completely organically. We've spent no money on marketing, right? It's what we learned at Pluto is that it's not difficult to market a product that's free, right?
Yes,
So and
particularly if it's a
especially
good product, yeah.
and in this case, when it's a free TV, so Pluto never really went viral, right? We launched Pluto, we like prepped our servers, we're like, we're gonna crash, it's gonna go nuts. Nothing happened, right? It took us time to build and iterate that service, and of course, the business is doing incredibly well now, over $1 billion in revenue, multiple years in a row. Telly was a little bit different because it's such a high value product, right? This thing just went viral. It was covered on every media outlet. It's all over social media. We've never given it to any influencers, nothing. We never did anything, but it worked, right? And then, of course, we needed to make sure the product is good. So we also just signed with Foxconn, who's the largest consumer electronics manufacturer. The company behind the iPhone, of course. And we now have the attention opportunity to grow very quickly and scale to a very large amount. We've done paid tests where if we said, okay, if we wanted to acquire a consumer in any demographic, psychographic, how much would it cost us? We're talking about $2-3 to get a user. It's very little. Even if we have to do it, right? But it doesn't seem like we have to just because of virality. But if we had to, that's not where the marketing cost is very efficient for us.
Tell us a little bit more about what it looks and feels like to be an advertiser on Telly, and in particular, maybe bear in mind, the one of the large constituent audience here at Signal are folks at P&G. So how might a company like P&G engage with Telly? What do the ads look and feel like, and what's different, and what might they learn?
Yeah, that's a good question. So first of all, I think we got to go beyond the 30, right? So the typically ads on TV are obviously in between content in ad pods, right? Whether it's streaming or broadcast, doesn't matter. That's where they are. And not only are a lot of those rooms empty when those ads play, the engagement's also very low, right? It used to be a great way to reach a big audience, but with all this fragmentation, it's no longer a great way to reach audience. And that's why most dollars are actually going to web mobile, right? Because that's where you can actually get performance out of your campaign. That's my background. I'm a performance marketer. I grew up on web and mobile, not on TV. And what we wanted to build from Telly is a way for advertisers to actually intersect those brand dollars with performance dollars, right? So first of all, when you turn on Telly, there's a power on unit, right? And we play about 2 minutes of ads, and that's a good example. That's a full takeover, right? It's not in between content. It's right when you turn on the device. Everyone sees it, right? And that makes it very powerful, very engaging. And then, of course, on the bottom, we have both video units and display units and rich media units, but they're one at a time, right? It's not like you're on a website scrolling and there's 15 banners. And that's why those CPMs are so low, because once again, the engagement is so poor. With us, it's completely opposite. It's one ad at a time. And the engagement's very high. In fact, any case study that we've pulled where we've measured ad recall, it's multiples above the ads that they typically see on television just because of that persistence. But of course, let's not forget.
Oh, I'm sorry for interrupting. I was just going to say, you've also made these ads engaging literally in that you can engage with them the way you can engage with anything on the internet, right? Which creates the potential for that sort of fabled mythological T-commerce space that, has yet to exist. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. So I was going to say but the data at the core, right, allows the ads to be super targeted, right, and not just what you're watching data, because that's just kind of directional, but the profile data and the survey data that we deliver to continuously learn more and more about the household. But yes. More importantly, when you see an ad, right, you can actually fully engage with it. So you can push A on the action button on the remote, and it says that next to the ad, and a full browser opens up, right, where you can opt in, purchase, anything you could do on a kind of a web mobile experience, right? And because we captured all of that profile data at sign up, we already have your name, your address, your credit card, etc. That makes the T-commerce process on the television very, very easy, right? Because no one likes, using those arrows to fill out forms.
You need to get rid of the friction. Yeah. Yeah.
You got to get rid of the friction. So it's working. So our app, like QR codes are cool, right? But it's also like you got to get out a phone, and that's why those conversion rates are low. We have QR codes. Our conversion rates, because our ads are persistent, are more than double any other TV maker. But we believe that's not really a solution. The solution is to be able to purchase on the television, right? And in fact, we've actually built experiences where that all can happen on the bottom screen, right? So like imagine you sponsored lunchtime and I don't know, your Pizza Hut. First of all, we already know you like Pizza Hut because we asked you that at sign up. So we're going to deliver those ads to people who said they like Pizza Hut during lunchtime. You're watching a game, but imagine engaging an ad and doesn't actually cover the game and you're purchasing your pizza there in 30 seconds because we know your address, we know your closest location, we have your credit card. Boom, that whole thing. You just got to pick some toppings and you're eating.
This all, I have to say I want one now, but I know that I'm, number 400,001 on the waiting list. So it might be a minute, but at what point do you think you'll get, assuming everything goes as well as you want it to, at what point will you get to what the television industry considers scale?
Yeah, great question. By Q2 of this year, we'll be at a significant scale that advertisers love, data folks love, and before the year is over, we're going to be past the seven-figure number because our demand is there, and now we're engaged with a manufacturer that can help us get there. So everything got unblocked, right? And now
Yeah.
we're ready to go.
Well, this is an exciting development, and I look forward to tracking it. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. But Ilya Pozin, thank you so much for joining us at Signal, and best of luck with disrupting the entire television landscape.
Thanks so much for having me.